Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Downtown Dallas Inc.'s State of Downtown series. We have heard from a number of remarkable guests over the last few months talking about their significant projects making a difference in downtown and a lot of the market impacts that we've seen as the downtown landscape has changed this year. We've heard from guests like Sean Todd, Ray Washburn, Larry Daniels, Sarah Terry, and John Zog. And today, I am absolutely thrilled to have Amy Meadows with Parks for Downtown Dallas to talk about one of our favorite topics, which are the downtown parks. Now, we're back again at the Market Scale Studios, and we are so grateful for their help, a downtown Dallas-based company here at Bank of America Plaza. They've been helping bring this wonderful production to all of you. Now, they have a short video that they'd like to tell you a little bit more about the company. Market Scale in 60 seconds.
You know how it's harder than ever to reach prospects in B2B? Nobody picks up the phone, trade shows are canceled, and travel for meetings is more challenging than ever before. So how can B2B marketers still make things happen? By building their own media channels. MarketScale helps B2B companies start their own podcasts and host their own virtual events so they can continue to grow. Our team works directly with B2B companies to build and deliver the podcasts, videos, and live broadcasts you see every time you visit LinkedIn. And we don't just create the content, we guide your team to become the rock stars, giving them the megaphone to educate your audience. MarketScale helps world leaders in B2B build their own marketing channels, saving them time, saving them money, and helping them build a stronger business. Your next big marketing campaign isn't an ad, it isn't a trade show. It isn't travel. It's digital transformation with MarketScale. It's time to scale up.
And thanks again to MarketScale with your help with this series. Now, we've also worked closely with the City of Dallas and the Dallas Police Department to address recent current issues like street racing, scooter challenges, and other environmental concerns as we all move toward bringing our employees back and ensuring our residents feel safe in their neighborhood. And supporting all of our businesses of all types and all sizes. Support of these businesses is more important than ever. And to help downtown small businesses, we've provided over $90,000 in grants through our storefront restoration program. And we've worked with the City of Dallas to enable our restaurants to have pop-up patio space so that they can better meet capacity regulations that are out there today. And finally, we have reaffirmed our commitment to building a downtown for all, ensuring and elevating our goals for equity and inclusivity. Now, the goal of this series is to take an in-depth look at the market drivers of the downtown Dallas economy. We'll look at COVID market impacts, and we'll look at those recovery strategies that enable us to collectively ensure that future growth and equitable advancement remain balanced. Now, why is this important? The stability of downtown Dallas is critical for the economic and social health of our entire city. Downtown remains one of the region's largest employers. Our residential base has had the fastest growing population year over year for the last decade. Downtown is less than 0.5% of the City of Dallas land area, but we're 5.5% of the tax base. And our downtown hotels bring in 41% of the city's hotel revenue. Now, these challenges that we're experiencing in downtown Dallas are no different than any still have $4 billion of development underway. We're seeing employees begin to return to the office, and our hotels are reporting month-over-month improvement in occupancy. Ida B. Wells Montessori began their first classes in person, our new downtown elementary school, last year. And we'll hear from Amy more about new parks like West End Square and Carpenter Park that are moving forward. Over 200 restaurants, shops, museums, and service-based businesses are open in downtown Dallas. We know that performance programming is coming back to the Dallas Arts District, and we're seeing fitness classes at the Eye at the Jewel and Main Street Garden and Clyde Warren Park. And the Dallas Farmers Market calendar is absolutely full with fall events. We're seeing many new restaurant openings like Rise in Time, True Kitchen and Cocktails, Chill Mama Taco Bar, Burger I Am, La Tarte, Primo's, and Spherico at the Statler. So a long list of great places to come down and check out that maybe you haven't seen before. And there is absolutely no better way to tell downtown's story than to talk to those who are making it happen. So over the course of the summer, we're still going to hear from, or the course of the fall, I should say, we're going to hear from more folks like Michelle Brockwell with AT&T Discovery District. Very excited to hear from her soon. And Mike Hoke with Hoke Global. But for today, it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome Amy Meadows with Parks for Downtown Dallas. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Kourtny. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, a little bit about Amy. Amy is the president and CEO of the Parks for Downtown Dallas Foundation, or just Parks for Downtown Dallas with the new brand. And they're a private operating foundation focused on the development of 4 priority parks implemented in the 2013 City of Dallas Parks Master Plan update. Now, prior to embarking on this effort, Amy served for 11 years as vice president and executive director of the Belo Foundation, during which time the foundation oversaw the design and construction of Belo Garden, which was identified in the original 2004 Parks Master Plan. In October 2015, the Belo Foundation was reconstituted as Parks for Downtown Dallas to focus all of its resources on the development and advocacy of our downtown parks. Amy's been active in the Dallas nonprofit community for more than 25 years and is married with 2 children and, of course, a dog. Very important when we're building our parks, right, Amy?
Yes.
And Amy is a proud Texan, having earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Texas at Austin and her master's degree from UNT. And finally, near and dear to our hearts, Amy is a member of our Board of Governors and very dedicated, very engaged, and we're very grateful for your service. So, Amy, I want to start. We've loved getting to know our guests just a little bit more throughout this series. So I want to start with just talking about your time in Dallas, the amount of time that you've spent dedicated to civic and nonprofit roles, and what really drives you to continue to take on these challenges.
Well, thanks, Kourtny, and thanks again for wanting to highlight the downtown parks. And I'm just one member of a team of Parks for Downtown Dallas. We're really excited about the work we're doing, which we partner, as you know, very closely with DDI on all of this work. I am from Austin and grew up there and moved to Dallas in 1990. And fortunately, I guess you could say my parents were very engaged in the community civically and, encouraged all of us to give back. And when I came to Dallas and married a Dallas boy, his family is also very, very engaged civically. So I've been surrounded by people like that all my life and feel like it is my obligation is to be engaged and to try to help our community improve itself. And so when I had this opportunity to join Robert Deckard and the team to do this work, it just seemed like a wonderful fit. And I feel very blessed to have worked in philanthropy and had a variety of experiences, both professionally, but also on a volunteer basis. And I certainly am honored to serve on the DDI Board of Governors because I feel like, goodness, I don't know, downtown wouldn't look and feel the way it does today were it not for your work.
Wow. Thank you, Amy. That was not a scripted plug, but I appreciate it. Now, we came to know each other when you managed the Belo Foundation. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the Belo Foundation had a variety of focus areas. So tell us just a bit about the history of the Belo Foundation, but most importantly, why the shift from a variety of focus areas that a lot had to do with downtown, but why the shift now to specific focus on parks?
Well, the Belo Foundation was actually created in 1952, so it has a really long history. And for 63 years, it made grants in a whole wide array of areas. When I joined in 2004, the trustees made the decision to actually narrow that focus to really 2 primary areas: college level journalism education And I think everyone can understand that. That's what I would call enlightened self-interest, that many corporations fund areas where they know they have skills, talents, something to contribute to that particular funding area. So we did a lot of work on journalism education. And then we also, the other platform was urban planning and green space. And so there was a lot of efforts with obviously the core, the city of Dallas, downtown Dallas, but we made grants in other markets where Belo had either television stations or newspapers. As you all know, in 2008, there was a big change in the journalism industry, and the company spun off the newspaper side, and that's now A.H. Belo Corporation. Katie Murray on your board of directors, CFO. So they're still going strong, the Dallas Morning News is, but we, in 2013, we remained with Belo Corp, and in 2013, Belo Corp was sold to Gannett. And so at that point, then we really moved off. We left the Belo campus. We moved here to Bank of America Plaza. We've been here since January of 2014. And in 2015, our trustees made the decision that they really wanted to, now that we didn't have any other markets in which we were working in, we wanted to focus all of our energies and our efforts and our resources here in downtown Dallas. And that was very a logical projection there. And as you know, we did Belo Garden. We opened that in 2012. So that was part of our history. The company had a significant history already building Lubin Plaza, WFA Plaza, leading the effort on the Dallas Police Memorial. So there was a history here that really goes all the way back to G.B. Dealey, bringing George Kessler to Dallas, decades and decades ago. So this was in our DNA, if you will. So from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. But also we have to look to our leader, our chairman, Robert Deckard. As you all know the story, in 2002, Mayor Laura Miller asked him to chair the Inside the Loop Committee, which actually then realized that there was no plan for parks in downtown. This was a commerce center, and green space had never been considered. And so from that perspective, the 2004 original Downtown Parks Master Plan was created, and then it was updated again in 2013. So our work really focuses on fulfilling and completing these two master plans. Lots of effort went into creating these, and we think they're making a huge difference now in downtown and just the whole dynamic of downtown.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great point to build on, because with the Inside the Loop report in the first version of the Parks Master Plan from 2004 and 2005, we were really looking at parks as a catalyst, as a part of a revitalization plan for downtown. Well, fast forward to the parks you're planning today, West End Square, Carpenter Plaza, we're now building them as a part of neighborhoods. So how has the planning for those parks changed? How has design changed? And is there a shift in the philosophy from where you were then to where you are now?
I don't believe there has been a real shift in philosophy, largely because you had incredibly talented, visionary individuals engaged from the beginning in these planning processes, who I believe saw a different future from Dallas than what was existing at the time. And if in the stories I've been told, the late 1990s, only 200 people lived in the urban core, and now we have over 12,000, and that, as you well know, doesn't even include all of the neighborhoods that surround the core, which I think the last number I heard from DDI was around 50,000 plus residents if you include all of those. So those I don't think anyone realized it maybe would grow at the rate it's grown, but the designers that came in and worked on the original plan in 2004, Mary Margaret Jones with Hargraves, now Hargraves Jones, was a key part of that. And this is a woman who's been designing parks all over the globe. So she understands the catalytic effect that green space has on a downtown urban environment. And so I think that was the projection that everyone was using. What could this city be if all sorts of things that were discussed in the Inside the Loop Committee came to pass, coupled with the Parks Master Plan? This, our city could be transformed in frankly, a relatively short period of time. And I understand, there were real estate there were crises, real estate crises, the Great Recession, and no crises went to waste. Everybody took advantage of those opportunities. For instance, when we built Belo Garden, materials prices went down, labor prices went down. We were able to build that park with a wonderful surplus that we were then able to create an endowment to help maintain that park. And that's an example of, taking advantage of the situation, but it's been much for the better. And I think that it also then is an example of how we should be thinking about these projects going forward, because I'm not sure at the time, and I'm not sure if even today, there was ever an endowment that existed to support a park in our system.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I want to come back to that when we talk about some of the funding models and fundraising, because it's an important point. But then I want to pick up on something else that you said, because I think you said it without saying it, and that is the value of parks to economic development. Mm-hmm. So we've now come to know, and it's been proven over and over again, that parks directly correlate to economic return, economic development. Yeah. Where have you seen evidence of that in the parks that you all have built, and how does that begin to factor into your planning now?
Well, obviously Clyde Warren Park, which we have nothing to do with but are incredible fans, that is the uber example of economic development. And I know that they have done the research to be able to actually put dollars and cents and numbers to it. Our parks that we've opened, obviously Belo Garden, we opened that in May of 2012, and a lot has changed in that area. We have the Metropolitan fully, full of housing, residents. One Main Place now has, the Westin Hotel, and they seemed very interested in being across from a park when they were building that property. There's lots of development that's happened in this area, and what I noticed with the opening of the Omni, you had all of these tourists and people on the street that we had never really seen before in downtown, or I hadn't seen in my tenure working downtown. All of a sudden, are out on the streets. And so we see this pattern of people walking from the Omni through Belo Garden into other areas, Main Street District, et cetera. Pacific Plaza, as you know, we opened in October of 2019. And although the real estate was very developed in that area, we know that there's a spillover effect. And so we see more development occurring and more businesses and residents wanting to be in that vicinity of that park. They love it. That's their backyard for those people that live in those buildings. I know One Dallas Center and HKS got involved with this park for that very reason. It was there at their front doorstep. So we've seen that there. West End obviously is a very tight district, not a lot of space, but that park is well underway. It's looking really good. I was over there looking at it yesterday, and you can really start seeing it come to shape, and it will open in the spring of 2021. I have a feeling that there will be a lot of new businesses in that area, and we do know of developers who have bought buildings. For instance, Robert Lebie purchased the old Spaghetti Warehouse building, which is on the western side of the park. And I think who knows what's going to happen, what he's going to do with that development there. And I believe that we will see a lot of energy coming into the district and many more opportunities, maybe hopefully new restaurants and things like that will surround the park and face the park and use that as an amenity. Yeah. I certainly think it's a draw for residents. Where I think we will see probably the most transformative change will be around Carpenter Park, because there is not a lot of development. That is still where you have the surface parking lots that surround two sides of it. And then you have, obviously the elevated freeway of I-345 and in East Dallas on the other side. And then Matthew Southwest, wonderful development of Old Dallas High, right across the street on Live Oak, and now they're developing their affordable housing there. So I think that area is going to be really ripe for transformation. And then the final park we're going to open is Harwood Park. And I know you've had Sean Todd on, and hopefully he referenced Harwood Park because I think he's very excited about it. And what he's communicated to us is that was one of the catalysts for him wanting to develop the East Corridor, because he knew Harwood Park would be right there at the front door, and his residents and his tenants would have this, beautiful park at their doorstep. So And the farmers market too, as you well know, is fully developing, and there's just a lot of activity in that whole area. So I think those two parks in particular will really see a lot of development in and around the parks themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree more. Talk for just a minute, because I'm not sure everyone really knows. Carpenter Park will be the largest.
It will,
park
yes.
In terms of acreage.
Over 5.6 acres, correct.
And it is the location, and you said this is so important because it's connecting many, many districts.
Right.
One of the little known things, I think, is how many different amenities are included in the park. So will you run us through a quick description of what that park will be?
Of Carpenter, sure.
Yeah.
So we just had the groundbreaking September 30th, a very small, socially distanced groundbreaking, but construction is starting, and first efforts for many months will now be the utility work, and so everybody needs to be patient on that piece of it, because these parks, as you all are understanding, are being built in an urban environment that was already filled with all sorts of utilities and sometimes things you didn't know were buried there. So it's a real challenge. It's not as though we're building this on raw land in a suburb. So we ask that you and bear with us while we work through the initial several months of groundwork, and then you'll start to see the park come to life. And it's approximately an 18-month process. The northern boundary is Live Oak. The western boundary is Pearl. The eastern boundary is Central Boulevard, Cesar Chavez, and the southern boulevard is Pacific Avenue. As Kourtny mentioned, there are many amenities, and if we go north to south, we'll start with the Robert Irwin sculpture that originally ran north-south in Carpenter Plaza, which is a park dedicated in the early 80s. And Mr. Irwin, who is now 92 years old, has reimagined his sculpture. It will run east-west, symbolizing and signifying that connection to East Dallas. And this is the second most piece of valuable public art owned by the city of Dallas. So we're really excited that he's done something that he's never done in his career before. So that's that. You'll see the first or most northern side of the park, and then there will be a great lawn. So we have made sure to really incorporate large lawn space in 3 of the 4 parks. Obviously, West End is less than an acre. It's a little hard to put a big lawn in West End Square, but all the other 3 parks have large lawns. There's a children's play area that's more based on nature play. We'll have a small splash pad. There are granite walkways, gardens. There's a very large interactive fountain at the southeast corner at Pacific and Pearl. On the eastern side of the park, we will have our Pavilion Park Services building. There will be a basketball court. This was a change that was implemented this summer at the request of the city council. So we have removed the bocce courts and are replacing it with a single basketball court. And then there's a dog play area. So there's a little bit of, I think, something for everyone, and hopefully neighbors that live on the eastern side of I-345 will feel comfortable coming to the park in that direction, and certainly those at the Matthews Southwest development. And then we look forward to seeing what happens. The Dart East Transfer Center is right there. And that block, I should just say for everyone, since you all are concerned about downtown, that block from Pearl to Live Oak to Pacific, that block of Pearl, will be realigned. It's a rather odd configuration right now for anyone who has traveled, especially northbound lanes. So that's going to be straightened out and realigned as during this whole conversion of the park itself too. So a lot of activity is going to be going on the eastern side of downtown for the next 18 or so months.
Long awaited, I'll say.
Yeah.
As someone who used to live in the farmers market and walk to our office when it was in Chase Tower, that was a usual path. And I think we had construction even then, but this one is moving. We're thrilled to see the progress, Amy. Now, with all these amenities in the parks, they don't take care of themselves. So talking about, as we do well know, being in the business of helping you to do that. So I've often really thought that you all have a funding model that is one of the best practices in the country, because you're dealing with not only the acquisition and the development of these properties, but you also have long-term maintenance and a lot of the management pieces in mind. So talk a little bit about all of the moving parts, from the way that you all structured the funding to the public-private partnerships that you have with the City of Dallas, and even obviously with us as Downtown Dallas Inc.
Sure. Well, I think I should preface this by saying it's a great model, but it is very unique. And it's someone who has worked on kind of all sides of philanthropy and the whole nonprofit sector. We started out as a private foundation, which meant we had basically one or just a handful of donors that were all connected. And we had an endowment, and we had a standalone 501c3 status. So we were able to make that decision. How do we want to pivot with this? But we did not choose to become a public charity at this time. It's not to say we won't go there. So we don't have to meet a public support test and have a large fundraising machine, if you will. So we are kind of in the middle of this continuum of the nonprofit structures. And we have our own assets, which is what we pledged to use for the construction and design of these parks, coupled with bond dollars. So we entered into an agreement, a public-private partnership with the City of Dallas, and they pledged $35 million in the 2017 bond program, and there was 4.4 remaining from the 2006 bond program that was allocated for the purchase of land for West End. So city has put in 39.5. We pledged to match that, but actually, we've exceeded it. To date, we are now at 56 million. So we're using our assets. And then we also have other private funding partners that have engaged with us. And several donors have stepped forward to help with various naming opportunities of these parks. We have not, like I said, done a massive fundraising campaign because we are a tiny team. And so we have allocated about 5 to 8 different funding opportunities or naming opportunities within these parks. And we have several of them funded so far, but I know more will come when people see more of these parks coming into fruition. And so that helps us build an endowment as well to your point of maintaining these parks. As I mentioned, the city hasn't really ever established endowments, and I understand why. They're operating, with their operating budgets annually, the decisions are made. And we recognize that that's long-term not going to sustain these parks. And so we've got to figure out a mechanism to ensure that capital repairs can be made on a timely basis, that regular maintenance can be done every day, every week. And DDI obviously is a critical partner in that. So it's a much broader public-private partnership when you all jump into it as well, because you have the clean team and the safety patrol, and you also have the programming elements through your public-private partnership with the City of Dallas. So it's all of us working together to figure out what roles we can play. And we are huge advocates for these parks, and we think that there needs to be a voice that continues to exist advocating for them, but as well as raising funds to support their ongoing maintenance and upkeep. And we've actually, just kind of dipped our toe in North Texas Giving Day, and that was exciting. So we've got some donors that have come online and supported us through that. And we hope over time that downtown residents, that downtown companies and businesses, they'll see the value and will do what they can to support this effort too. And so that's really our model. And as I say, it's not an easy model to replicate, because you need to start with a private foundation who has an endowment who says, hey, we're willing to dedicate all of our resources to this one mission.
Right.
So,
which I suspect, part of this series is to look at the realities of the market situation that we're in today, COVID market impacts, and where we're seeing the different industries in downtown and sort of the state of things. So, I often point to things like the parks and the schools and these public-private partnership projects that are moving forward because you've created these sustainable financial models. But thinking about the COVID impact in terms of future design in terms of changes in operations immediately that you all have made or that we've made together? You know, what has COVID really changed about the way you're doing business, if anything at all? Because we have a lot of people who are saying it's too soon to tell.
Right. And I would say that at this point, because this process takes a long time. So it's not, we can't just change the design, if you will, on a dime, you know. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, alluded to earlier, that there was a lot of visionary work that went into these original plans. And so we are implementing the 04 plan, the 2013 plan. 2 parks or 3 parks were actually implemented from the 04 plan, Main Street Garden, Belo Garden, and Clyde Warren. And so our first 2 parks coming online with Pacific Plaza and next West End Square, that will complete the 04 plan. So those parks, as I said, one was built, one is already under construction, you know, before it started construction before COVID began. So obviously that design has not changed. Then we look at 2013, that's where Carpenter Park emerged and Harwood Park. Those plans have also been in the design process for quite some time. Carpenter predates Parks for Downtown Dallas. And that is a project that started due to road realignment on the eastern side of downtown. So in 2011, the first meeting was held with Robert Deckard, John Carpenter, Mary Soom, then city manager, Paul Dyer, then park department director. And in 2013, the park department hired Hargraves Jones to do the schematic design phase of the process. Mm-hmm. We did not get involved as an organization until 2015. And we have been involved ever since. But this design, and the design has been evolving. But for the most part, it was done until this summer when the city council did ask us to make this one change in terms of amenity, which we did. But the design itself then has not really been altered due to COVID. Harwood Park, I would tell you the same thing. It's very deep in design development, the second phase. We certainly are still looking and analyzing every aspect of that particular park and its design. It's got a lot of real estate, over 3.8 acres. But I think with the fact that we've built in lots of lawn, as I mentioned, we've also, have other amenities that are recreational, that are contemplative spaces where you can just go and be in peace in nature and trees. And if you're coming out of your apartment, that's a wonderful gift, right? So, I don't see us saying, okay, we need to throw everything away and start over on Harwood Park in terms of a design related to COVID. We need to kind of keep moving forward. And if there are issues that arise that we need to re-examine, we will certainly do that because we have time on that park. We don't anticipate breaking ground until summer of 2021. As you know, we try to do some fixed seating in the parks as well as movable furniture. And so that certainly has helped. All 4 of these parks have that, as does Belo Garden, so 5. Your team kindly pulled all the material and the furniture at Pacific Plaza and has stored that until things are fine again and we can all get back out and social distancing is not as important. But I recognize that the lawns themselves and just the green space and the trees is just so important to everyone's physical and mental health. And we want to get these parks online as soon as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a quick reminder for our audience before I ask you this last question or two. We have a whole thread of kudos and thanks to you, Amy, but I want to remind our audience, if you have questions, be sure and send those in. We've got a lot of praise for everything that you all are doing. Pacific Plaza is a fantastic backyard, is one of the comments here. So I would definitely concur with that. Now, Amy, let's shift a little bit to West End Square and the fact that this is to be our first smart park, and how technology is beginning to be incorporated into public space. So talk a little bit about that element and what we can expect to see.
Sure. And I want to jump back one quick second to your question on COVID, because actually that, I mentioned before, don't waste a good crisis. And COVID is certainly that, but it has actually proven a benefit to West End because that is such a small space. And Beck has been able to get the construction, the materials, the construction supplies, the big trucks, those have been able to get in and out of the West End Square in a way that we haven't seen with any other park, and we're not really disrupting life for everyone, like construction projects can do. So that's actually been a benefit, and it's really moving very quickly. So encourage people to wander over there and take a look. You can see one of the first smart features of this park is the frame. And it is on the three sides of the perimeter of the park, and it is designed to hold, it's an armature structure that holds all the technology for the park. And it's designed to be plug and play, so as things change over time, the park can adapt to technological changes. Really, it's a park with smart features, so that was taken into account with irrigation and with lighting. The water feature that the DDI Foundation made a grant to support actually has 3 different features that it will operate from: a still feature, a bubbler feature, and a mist feature. And all of those are going to relate. The technology will pick up what's happening in the environment, and it will adapt. And so it might, you might walk through one day and you see a big cloud of mist, kind of sitting above the water feature because it's really hot and dry out. You have another day where it's very windy, and so there's lots of bubbler action going, and then another day it's still, and you can see the clouds reflected in the water feature. So the water feature itself is utilizing technology too. We're looking at hopefully opening the park with something in the Innovation Arcade that is on the market side of the park, and that is where we hope that people will take advantage of bringing different tech exhibitions or art features, etc. We're working with Aurora right now on bringing something in, the opening, as I said. And then you will also see Wi-Fi features. There's a large work table that's been custom built for the park that has built-in charging stations, Wi-Fi, and if this is the only public park that is opening with Wi-Fi, because that's a city decision, and they wanted that to go into the park that is in the Innovation District. So we anticipate that a lot of people will come out of their offices in that area and work in the park. And several of the other seating areas have those charging stations as well. So it's trying to figure out how to bring the technology in that we think that people that are living and working in that district will benefit from and enjoy using.
Yep. So we shift from technology to safety. Obviously, safety is absolutely paramount in any type of a public space. And we work closely with our security team, with our homeless outreach team, with the Dallas Police Department to ensure that our downtown parks are safe. So from you all's perspective, you're mostly involved in a lot of the planning and design. So how does safety play a role in the way that you all are planning for these parks?
Well, we have actually learned a lot from DDI and Dustin Bullard in particular. Y'all have been so instrumental as sharing your time and resources with us through the design process, and for which we are very grateful, because you also under the back end of this, like I mentioned, your clean team and your safety patrol. So each lessons that you learn from the respective parks, you share with us, we incorporate those as well. We have learned, for instance, that a patrol officer needs to be able to drive by a park and have good sight lines. So that becomes very important. We think about how we build and where we place seating. We learned a lot with Pacific Plaza, first time skateboarding and scootering, because there's been damage that those endeavors have led to in the park, and we want to minimize those things going forward. So we are working with people to help analyze the parks so we can design them in a way that we can minimize that kind of damage. I think it's just even looking at where people sit and possibly leave trash. As an example, we had this conversation the other day that we noticed that a lot of times benches that are seated, next to a garden, when your clean team comes through, they're having to go behind those benches and pick up all sorts of trash that people have just thrown when they're eating their lunch or something at the bench. So we try to take all of those things into consideration. I think the other piece to this is the dogs. When we built Belo Garden, there weren't that many dogs downtown yet, when the park was designed, because it was designed much earlier than it was built. And we have seen since that time, there's almost a 1-to-1 ratio human to dog. And so we have been learning as we go and how we incorporate dog care into the parks. Pacific Plaza, Chuck McDaniel at SWA did a great job of designing dog relief zones. So we've taken that concept now to the other parks and really worked hard to figure out how we can minimize dog damage. So we're not continually replacing trees, because yes, we've actually lost a lot of trees due to dogs, plant materials, garden beds, et cetera. So all of those things, I think we look at them very holistically, and it's things that we are learning and experiencing, but also we learn from you all, as from DDI's experiences. And then the park department's obviously very involved in all of these discussions too, and they help us, reanalyze maybe a material that works really well in certain environments, but not so well in another. So all of those things are taken into consideration. We have definitely funded some extra security as needed at times. We are really encouraging the park department to add park rangers downtown, and we support that, and we will do what they need help with on that front. Because this is going to be an all hands on deck to maintain these parks in a way that all of us value and appreciate. And, they're for the residents, but they're also for the businesses as well as the visitors that are coming to downtown. So we need to figure out how everyone can kind of join together, be the eyes and the ears on these parks. And to your point, use the CSA app, right? When you see something, definitely report it, because somebody will respond and get to it.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So here's the $1 million question then. Harwood, Carpenter, we're kind of coming down to our last two parks here, Amy. What's next?
Well, we got to raise that endowment, Kourtny.
Well, that was going to be my final
dollars to fund an endowment, and it started, and we are grateful for those that have stepped up to join this effort. Many people, I'm sorry, I feel like I should be listing every donor that stepped up to date. There are several, and they're incredibly generous. But we need more. We need more help to get there and get that endowment in place, because that will benefit all of downtown. And as I say, whether you work, live, or play here, it's going to benefit you. Park department budgets are set annually. And I think that's really important. Everyone remember that bond dollars don't go to maintenance. Bond dollars go to capital and construction. And hopefully when we have completed the 2013 plan, then downtown has the green space it needs. In a very short time, our city, really, if you look at from 2009 when Main Street Garden opened to 2022, 2023, when all the rest of these parks will be open, downtown Dallas will have added 23 acres of green space, which is rather remarkable. And to our knowledge, we haven't seen any other city in America do that in such a short time. But that means we all have to figure out how to do this together, because the park department's budget will not keep up with that annually, just given all the demands of a large park system and the fact that they're adding parks in other neighborhoods of Dallas. So we ask for everyone downtown, if they see the value in this, which I think we all do, given not only its physical, mental health, but also environmental. Downtown Dallas is a heat island. And we've got to have more green and more trees. So there are huge environmental benefits to these parks as well that we haven't really touched on. But there's so many benefits to them. And we hope that citizens will and businesses will step forward and help us do this and get us over the line so we can build this endowment. And then there will be more funding to maintain these parks for the long term, because we're building them for 100 years.
Absolutely. And Amy, I think that's a great note to end on. I love a call to action. I think it's undeniable how important these parks are to downtown today and what they will be in the future, economically, socially. It's truly the heart and soul of the heart of our city. So Amy, thank you for your tireless work. Thank you for your time this morning. I think we've had a really robust conversation, and I know a lot of folks have learned a lot. So thank you. and look forward to seeing you probably in the next couple of days.
Yes, that's true, I'm sure. Thank you, Kourtny, for recognizing Parks for Downtown Dallas. And again, if I could just say, really thank you to Robert Deckard, because this is his vision that we are implementing. And none of us would be doing this work were it not for him. And he's been in the trenches for a long time. And the one thing I think we've all learned is perseverance and persistence are the only way that you can get this work done, because it is incredibly challenging. Building parks sounds easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
So thank you all so much for including us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amy. And thank all of you for joining us. Please make sure you mark your calendars. Our next State of Downtown is on October 22nd, and that will be with Michelle Brockwell with AT&T Discovery District. I know we are all very anxious as things have begun to open up there at the Discovery District to hear what's coming next. I also want to take just a minute to remind you, if you're interested in getting more engaged with Downtown Dallas Inc. and you're not already a member, please go to our website at downtowndallas.com and consider being a part of moving this city, the heart of our city, forward. We have a very robust list of things that you can get involved in, from business development opportunities to educational forums like this, to rolling up your sleeves on committees and task forces and really helping us move forward. You can also find our State of Downtown report. The full narrative report with all of the market statistics and data is on our website at downtowndallas.com, and we're updating that now on a monthly basis so that it can truly be a tool for you to plan your business into the future. I want to thank MarketScale one more time for their production and their help to bring this broadcast to you. And with that, I'll tell everyone, have a great day. Enjoy our parks in downtown Dallas. Thanks.